Kelly, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be on your show. Longtime listener, first time attendee.
I don't, it was funny. You came and spoke to the mastermind when we were in Nashville, and I looked at you and I was like, how have you not been on my podcast? Like while you were talking, I like Googled, like didn't Google, I went on like the podcast, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
Apple Podcast, and I was like, she's never been on. And you're one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. You've literally done every job possible. You
Yeah.
have an expertise in so many different lanes. Like we can go down 50 different rabbit holes in this conversation. I don't know where it's going to go, but where I want to start is who is Kelly Greene today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
Okay. Who is Kelly Greene today? Kelly Greene is a resilient woman. And it was a long, arduous road to get there, but that's who I am today. Mom. I have four jobs. I'm very proud of my four jobs, but they are four managed jobs, so it's not like they're four full-time jobs. But um, mom is a big job for all of it, but that's not one of the four I'm talking about. I do, I'm a university lecturer part-time. I'm a therapist, psychotherapist part-time. I do what we're going to talk about, I think, today, which I'm up for talking about anything, by the way. So, like, wherever you want to go, I'm down for it. But resilience work. And then my newest and super exciting endeavor is I'm a farmer.
Just that in itself, everybody's going to be like, who is this woman? How do you find yourself in all these situations,
I
which is just
know.
amazing. And we are going to dive into the resiliency stuff, and it's a study that you're doing with Harvard, which takes it to a whole new level, and it's absolutely fascinating. But I want to start kind of with your backstory. When
Sure.
you speak in places, you're like, I ended up in the White House instead of the whorehouse. And
Mhm.
it's such a contrast from your childhood to the life that you're living now, and that's obviously the resiliency piece. But I want to go back to your childhood and where this all kind of began and why resiliency is so important for you to study and get the word out.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. So, sometimes I talk about this in a group, sometimes I don't. It depends on what the group needs and wants, just because sometimes when you talk about big T trauma, and it makes people think, oh gosh, uh, wow, she can get through this. I couldn't have withstood that, right? And it's just not true. And so when I talk about big T trauma, like in the psychology world, we're talking about things that are like rape, abuse, physical assaults, those things that you can point to and say, wow, it was that. Versus little T trauma, where you're typically talking about things like neglect, which from a research perspective is just as damaging, if not more, than that big T trauma. So I always preface it with that. So my story is mostly big T trauma in the sense that I had a dad who molested me and sold me for sex
Mm.
very early on. And thankfully, I was not in his care 100% of the time. So it only happened when I was in his care. And I was very young. My earliest memories around four. I'm sure it probably happened before then, just from stories, things I've gathered and put together. My last memory is around seven or eight. So at that, there was a stopping point,
Hmm.
which is good. And it was when he actually went to jail for a totally unrelated um, offense. But so that's sort of like those were those big T trauma moments growing up. And so, yeah, it obviously, anytime you go through anything like that, it's going to change the trajectory of your life. And so I always say that girls like me, and maybe boys, I've not done the research on how men fared through that as much as I have women, but we tend to end up either in the whorehouse or the White House. So we cope through drugging and drinking, or we cope through achieving.
Mm.
And then that can also lead to drugging and drinking, right? So my path, I went the White House path, meaning that it was important for me to become a performer overachiever. And that's what I did. So I, went undergrad, got a degree undergrad, went to law school, became a successful attorney,
Yeah, we
so on
didn't
and
talk
so
about
forth.
that either. Like talk about all the
Oh,
things you've done.
I know, I know. I know. I had a friend the other day that was like, "Can you just sit down and tell me every job you've ever had?" I'm like, Buckle up, Buttercup. I sure can. I remember them all. From day one, McDonald's. I was actually my very first job, 15, McDonald's drive-through. But anyway,
I love it. I love it. So obviously you go to law school, develop a very successful practice, do all these things, exit that, move into the next thing. But I want to talk about, and we talked a little bit about this in Nashville, but I get asked the question all the time because of what I went through and what I experienced as a child. Like, wow, how did you end up where you are? Like, how did you not end up down the bad path,
mhm.
um, or in the whorehouse, as you like to say, right? So, like, when I look at that, what separates the two? Like, what's the difference between those two people? It's the story with the alcoholic father and the two sons. One ended up being an alcoholic, and one ended up being super successful. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think that some people naturally have a propensity for grit, and that is different than resilience. And so, grit is the ability to set a goal and then have passion and perseverance to meet that goal. And when you are gritty, you can achieve what people view as success, not easily, but you can achieve it, right? And so I think that grittier people, and research agrees that grittier folks by nature tend to go the White House path. And again, that's still coping, right?
Yeah.
They're just gritty, so they're coping with performance and achievement. It's a coping strategy. It is no better in a sense of how it's being used, right, than drinking and drugging. It's
Yeah.
still a coping. It's just that the outcome is more externally pleasing than drinking and drugging, right? But it's so that's my philosophy on it, and I think that there's research that supports that it's just a those that have a natural propensity for grit.
Yeah. And so you talked about in Nashville how nature slightly outweighs nurture, right? How
Mm-hmm.
can three kids growing up in a household all end up in, even if it's a very healthy household, all end up in totally different ways? Is there a way for the nurture or somebody personally nurturing themselves to overcome that nature that might kind of
Absolutely.
make them end up there? So what's something somebody can do that feels like they're going down the wrong path and they feel like they have no control? How do they start to take back control?
Yeah. Well, they first realize that they have to realize that they are the common denominator in all the bad things that are happening to them in their adulthood. And not in adulthood, not in childhood.
Yeah.
You've got to deal with that, process it, and then take the good and leave it, right? But in adulthood, like my biggest aha moment was realizing that I was the common denominator. I, like, bad thing, line Kelly, bad thing, line Kelly, bad thing, line Kelly. I was the one present for every failed marriage, every failed relationship, no matter how it was failed, right? Whether it was falling out of love or being cheated on or being hit or being whatever, right? All the bad relationships, the bad career choices, the financial loss or whatever bad terrible thing happened. I was the one present for it. So when I had that moment of holy crap, I've got to fix this, that is what determines it. That's when you can nurture yourself to change your nature.
Mm,
And in from a psychology or a biology standpoint, we talk about that in a epigenetic in epigenetic terms, right? Like your epigenetic signature is kind of like light switches, right? So you can turn the light switch on and it turns certain genes on or off. So it's that in that as you're nurturing yourself, you're going to change those light switches of your epigenetics, which is changing that how that your nature is working with the environment.
wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I took a look at my life years ago, and the work that I end up doing is why I have such a great wife in Lauren. Multiple heartbreaks, right? A failed engagement, like all these things, and sat down with myself And I said, okay, maybe those people weren't right for me. They had their own baggage, they had their own BS, but I'm the only common denominator in all these relationships. And so I went and found a therapist that I really liked, and I hired a relationship coach. And I was like, let's rewire this bitch because I'm messing something up. Right. And so, and it could have been my picker was broken, right? Of picking the wrong people or whatever. And it was a lot of work that I had to do for years before I met Lauren. And like I'm, and Lauren really well, and it's one of those things where it's like, I'm really lucky, but I also did the work in order to deserve this relationship. And I think a lot of people miss that. They think that it is what it is, right? Because the reality is 95% of our programming happens before the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to rewire all of that stuff. And so what made you take the jump from being a lawyer to a psychotherapist? Was that the immediate jump?
So, ish into that field, into psychology. So, I had the law practice. I owned a real estate title agency and boutique law firm. Very successful. I could have made millions of dollars for the rest of my life doing that, and hated myself every minute of it. And not because it wasn't good work or important to the community, but because I knew that it wasn't aligned with who Kelly was put on this planet to be, right? And do.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have this like bucket list dream of going to Harvard. But, one of the things that childhood, unfortunately, I came out of childhood with a feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. My self worth was, in the toilet. So I never even applied to schools like Harvard. And so I thought, I've always wanted to go to Harvard. You know what I'm going to do? And I've always wanted to study the brain, psychology, neuroscience, which is so fascinating to me. And I had a moment in my marriage that had kind of, again, the rug got pulled out from under me yet again. And it was that moment that the rug was pulled out from under me when I was like, I'm the common denominator in this. What am I going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I know that I don't want to be a lawyer forever. I, at that point, practiced probably 13, 14 years. And so I made the decision to sell the practice and apply to Harvard. As one does at 40, whatever. I don't even know how old I was at that point. 40. I was in my 40s, probably 2, 3, maybe 44. Anyway, and I just took a couple of psychology classes to kind of get myself back in the game to see if I loved it. And I loved it. Like,
Mm.
not just loved it. Like, I'm a nerd, so I always loved school. There's literally, I was that kid when school was out. I would be super depressed and cry my eyes out because I couldn't go learn. Not because I couldn't go see my friends, because I couldn't go learn.
Yeah,
Right?
that you and I are very much opposite when it comes to
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm pretty much opposite most people, when it comes to that. I mean, I'm the kid that literally had the World Book Encyclopedia and read it. You know.
Oh, that's
Yeah, for
incredible.
real. It was so crazy. Anyway, that was my like fantasy mechanism, right? That's where I, as a kid, would like retreat. And but anyway, so I loved the psychology classes and decided to continue on and get my master's. So I got a master's in psychology at Harvard. And it was a magical time. And it was during that time that I realized that there was a pretty big divide between psychology research and those who were practicing, either a psychologist or psychotherapists. And I knew I wanted to do research and continue on and do PhD work. But I also knew I needed some clinical experience because what good is all of this? There is so much amazing research out there that we know nothing about because clinicians get busy, and this is even in the medical field. Clinicians get busy being clinical providers, right? And
Hmm.
they're not going back and referring to see what new is coming out, what people have like discovered, developed. And so I needed both. I felt like to be a good researcher, I need to be a good clinician. To be a good clinician, I need to be a good researcher. So while I was at Harvard, I also enrolled at Belmont University here in Nashville and took the additional courses to get my psychotherapy license. So it wasn't like I left law to do psychotherapy. I left law to figure myself out.
Yeah.
And that led to psychology and psychotherapy. And so, ah,
What a
ta-da.
what a journey, which leads to, the research that you're doing now, right?
Yeah.
We talked about grit. Do you have grit? Can you set a goal? Can you push through? Can you know, run through brick walls? Can you do all these things? And then you talk about the resiliency piece. And this part fascinates me because one without the other is pointless, right? Like you're going to burn yourself out if you have grit and you don't have resilience, right? So
Yep.
talk about what led you down the path of looking into resiliency and why you're
Sure.
doing such a deep dive now.
Absolutely. So, um, for those that knew my story or knew part of my childhood story, or just knew that I came out of some abuse, folks would look at me and go, "Gosh, you are just so resilient. Like it's amazing what you've come through. You're so resilient." And I'm like, "I am? Really?" Because I get that I look a certain way and I drive a certain car and I have a certain title and degree and a very successful business, right? But I also had, by that point, when I sold my law firm, probably I think I had seven or eight autoimmune diagnoses at that point, and I was rewriting my will for probably the fifth time to make sure that my daughter was going to be taken care of because I
Mm,
really didn't think I was going to see another year with her because I was so broken down internally. And I don't mean, but I wasn't broken down psychologically. Like I wasn't having those clinically obvious symptoms of anxiety, depression, or PTSD. I never struggled with that stuff.
interesting. Yeah.
So I would go to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and even therapists, and no one ever said, "Gosh, I wonder if all of your autoimmune conditions have anything to do with your childhood trauma."
Hmm.
Never, never.
That's
And
fascinating.
so when
I feel like autoimmune diseases is such an interesting thing and nobody really quite understands them.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the crazy thing is there's a ton of research about it. And there's like and so that's part of how it came together for me because I'm like all these people are telling me I'm resilient. I think I'm dying. My biomarkers are terrible. I need to figure what is resilience and what how does trauma affect us, all this sort of stuff. So when I dove into that literally year 1 at Harvard, I realized that there is a ton of research out there about autoimmune diseases connection with trauma, with traumatic events, that is totally separate from clinical presentations of anxiety, depression, PTSD. And I'm like, why do clinicians not know this? That's that divide, right?
Yeah.
And it was devastating to me that this was out there and there wasn't a lot of people talking about it. Now there are actually more people talking about it. Gabor Mate is a big name in this world, the psychoneuroimmunology kind of world, and he's done awesome work at making people aware that that trauma can actually affect us on a biological level, not just like we're storing memories. I mean, like it can manifest itself in autoimmunity and cancer and
Sure.
metabolic syndrome. And but anyway, that's what led me into resilience research is really understanding. I wanted to understand, am I really resilient? And I could definitively say, no, I was not.
Mm, yeah.
I
So you
was
had the
not.
grit without the resilience.
Correct.
And so,
Correct.
what is resilience truly, and
Yeah.
how can people build resilience? Because obviously, you've been able to build resilience, and you've reversed a lot of the autoimmune and all those
Yes.
things. Like,
Totally.
what is it? Because I think people throw that word out. Like you said, everybody's saying to you, "You're so resilient." What is resilience truly, and how can people build more resilience in their life?
Right. So resilience is, I'm going to differentiate it from grit before I give you the actual definition. So you're at point A and you want to get to point B, and point B is that goal that you want to get to, right? I want to write a book in a year. And you've set yourself out, I'm going to write this many times, yada, yada, yada. And then life happens. Dog dies, a parent dies. I mean, financial things hit, yada yada, like these really tough obstacles and challenges. And at the end of that year, you have a finished book. You're gritty, right?
Yeah.
You are gritty. At the end of that year, you have a finished book and you have your blood pressure's through the roof. You've gained 30 pounds. You've uh, now are you have a pre-diabetic, I don't know, like so on and so forth, right? You're not resilient. You get to the end of that year, you have a book, you're super healthy physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you're also resilient. So, resilience is the ability to face challenges, obstacles, traumatic events, and to bounce back successfully, both mentally and physically.
Mm.
And so, what, and I add the mentally and physically piece in my research because that's what it speaks to, because I teach about holistic resilience versus typically when people are talking about resilience, especially in the psychology world or therapy world or pop culture world, they're really just talking about psychological resilience because most of the resilience research has been for forever has been all about you've gone through some, trauma, and now you don't have clinical anxiety, depression, or PTSD. You're resilient.
Mm.
Well, there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks in that believe they're resilient and they're not because they've got all these medical issues that really were rooted in that.
Interesting.
And so there's a lot of research, and in my research, it also talks about this, but it shows the biological mechanism of which how that works.
Wow. So, how is somebody able to be resilient? Because I think that, especially for men, like we're taught to, grit grit your way through it, push your way
Yep.
through it, like, and you're
Yep.
going to be fine. And then obviously on the outside, everything looks great, but there are so, and this has been a reoccurring theme in conversation that I've had on this podcast for whatever reason. I don't know why. But these high performing men who have done it all, who've done all these things, and they exit their business, they've got $30 million in the bank, and then they take their life,
Yep.
right? Because they had grit, they didn't have resilience. So how can somebody build that resilience?
Yep.
And I think you have an amazing framework around it of how you can truly build it. Like, how can you instill that in somebody who thinks they are resilient,
Yep.
but they're clearly not?
They're clearly not. I know. And that's one of the hardest things when I tell people, I'm like, oh, yeah, you're not resilient. You're falling apart. You're decaying from the inside out. But there's the silver lining. You don't have to, right? So
Yeah.
like here's the and you're gonna win a car. Like, here's that piece. Is there are five in my research and in all of the thousands of studies I consumed to do my research. Um, I compiled all of those key factors of resilience and I put them into 5 pillars. The first, and I call them 5 pillars of holistic resilience. And the reason why I say holistic is because resilience, it should just be resilience, but I have to say holistic to get people to understand that you have to look at resilience both physically and mentally. Like it can't just be, oh, you don't have anxiety, depression, or PTSD. Like you have to look at the metabolic, the biological side of that, right? So those 5 pillars are, the first is higher purpose. And I made them all H's to make it really easy. But it's higher purpose, head, heart, hands, and human connection. So higher purpose is the foundational pillar. And the reason why it's foundational is because over and over and over and over again in research, the biggest indicators and factors in building resilience is meaning and purpose and spirituality.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter from a spiritual perspective what type of spirituality it is. And that's why I call it higher purpose. It's just your ability to connect vertically with something higher and beyond you, something outside of humanity in a sense, right? So whatever that purpose is, whatever that meaning is, and so ways that we can do that are through learning how to experience awe, learning how to receive and
Which I'm
give.
reading that book, by the way.
Oh my gosh, is it not so good?
It's really good. But here's the thing, my ADHD brain, there's a lot of words on every page.
Yeah.
We
Did
need a
you
little bit
buy
more
the
spacing.
book instead of the audiobook? I know,
Oh
right?
yeah, because ADHD, if I'm listening to the audiobook, I'd have to rewind 15 times because my brain would go elsewhere.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. But I will tell you, he does such a good. I'm ADHD too, like for real. Which is why when people are like, "Why do you have 4 jobs?" I'm like, because it is
I have
perfect
to.
for me. I have to. Like it's. I would die if I only did one of them. But he does. He narrates it himself. So, and you feel him, like
Yeah.
he's so good. So anyway, there's just my little recommendation on that. But that's that foundational pillar is higher purpose. Then the next pillar. So I kind of think of it. You're building a house, you build the foundation, then you've got to have the four corner posts, right?
Hmm.
And that ceiling is, I mean, that roof is when you it all comes together. So your four corner posts are head, which is your ability to think think healthy thoughts and regulate your thoughts. So when a really bad, you know, destructive thought comes in, you have the ability to recognize and go, yeah, this isn't serving me. I'm going to flip it, right? The next is heart, your ability to feel your emotions and then let them go.
Mm.
So people end up in one of two camps here. They're either people who like over identify with their emotions and they feel everything and they feel everybody else's emotions, and emotions are wonderful, and we should feel. How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? Right? Like, cool. And then it's the other side of, where people are like,
Yeah, they keep it buried.
right. And so you have to feel all the emotions. Those that bury, let them go. And then those that over identify, you need to learn to let them go. You need to have a front door and a back door for your emotions. Come in, come out. Hands, fourth pillar, is your habits and behaviors. So it is as simple as, are you hydrating every day? Are you eating a vegetable? Are you eating protein? I mean, are you moving your body? Are you working out? That is a huge component of being resilient.
Yeah.
What are your habits? How are you caring for yourself, your physical body, right? And then last is human connection. And this is our horizontal pathway, right? So I kind of look at it as higher purpose as vertical, head, heart, and hands is internal. This is our internal work. And then human connection is our horizontal work. And we need to, research tells us, and I've experienced it, and I know all of my clients, I work with so many people on this piece because we're in a loneliness epidemic right now,
Yeah.
is connecting with other healthy people and having healthy mentors. So it's not enough that you've just got someone. If you're stranded on the side of the road, you've got someone you can call. Like a lot of the psychology research when they're looking at social support is, do you have someone you could call in an emergency? Most people have someone they can call in an emergency. The question is, do you have someone that you can call in an emergency who's going to be healthy and uplifting, or someone that is going to be toxic and dysregulate you?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah,
So
it's huge.
you need healthy relationships, and you need mentors, somebody who is a little further along than you on a journey. And those five pillars are what help us to cultivate resilience, which is really, at the end of the day, if you're resilient, you're healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have like and of course I left mine in Nashville, but
Oh, I'll email it to you.
you have like a worksheet that people can kind of go through, and you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be truly honest with yourself when you're answering this, but it really shows you, okay, what pieces do I need to work on?
Yeah.
What pieces am I lacking? First of all, am I gritty? Right?
Hmm.
You take that test, which has been, you said that test was somebody else's. Walk us through
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always if I'm working with a group, so I work with a lot of corporations, they bring me in, and we're looking like, because you want employees just like you want yourself. You want to be both gritty and resilient. And so a lot of times, we first want to assess whether or not we're gritty. And you want to assess it for different areas, because I can be gritty in one area and fragile, not gritty somewhere else. So this is something that you just not one and done. Oh, I'm gritty everywhere, right? Like, you want to keep thinking about this, as you're walking your journey. But so grit is University of Pennsylvania, right there where you are. Angela Duckworth she's famous for developing the concept of grit, giving it the definition of passion plus perseverance. And she, along with others at UPenn, have developed the grit scale. And so that's what I have folks take, the grit scale, and kind of like in that particular area of life that they're working in. And then there's a holistic resilience scale that I've developed. It is not academically validated, so that you can't
Yet.
use it for research yet. So that will be my PhD work. And but it helps you to assess those five pillars, like where you are in those.
Yeah, I love it. Is there a place people can go get that, or is it that's not out there yet?
Yeah, I'm actually working, not yet, but maybe this week because Fable 5 came back out, and I'm kind of throwing some stuff in there to double check. But I've developed a resilience app, and
Mm,
it will be on my website, which is holisticresilience.com. Super easy. And the app, people can download the app. But anyway, the whole point of the app is I want folks to be able to assess where they are at any given time, like in this particular area, like for this goal. Am I gritty? Am I not? Am I resilient or not in this moment? And then it would have, like daily prompts and things like that to help you build that muscle.
yeah, which is incredible. Like, and I want people to understand that this whole entire process can rewire your body. It can rewire your mind. It can rewire everything. And that's the piece that people need to take away from this is like do the work, like go in deep dive into all this stuff because it'll change your life.
Yeah, and it's not like crazy work. You know, you don't have to spend an hour at 5 a.m. inside of this. You don't have to drop in for 45 minutes and connect with the quantum. Like, that is not what we're talking about. If that's you, great, do it. If that's what you need, do it, right? I'm talking about like 5 minutes of self evaluation and depth. Like, that can rewire your brain.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So I want to ask you a question I ask every single person on this show. It's a two-part question. The
Okay.
first part is what is your definition of success? And the second part is what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Okay. Well, that's going to be easy for me because my definition of success is being resilient, right? So like because being resilient means that you're healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and relationally.
Mm,
So if you're healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and relationally, you're successful. Isn't that success?
yeah.
Like to me, that's success. Because again, I've had the JD. I am still a licensed attorney. I've had $1 million law practice, and I was dying. It's
Yeah.
not very successful,
No.
right? So success to me is doing the work to be resilient. And then, what'd you say? The three things to get there.
Yeah, three things you do every day to make sure that success happens for you.
So I do have a morning practice, and yeah, it is a little bit longer, but I did start out pretty tiny in that practice, and I have just given myself the luxury of a 45-minute morning routine. So that's one of the things I do. So I wake up and I get myself whatever, coffee, tea, water, and go sit outside. Even in the cold, I sit outside. I'll put a parka on in 15 degrees, or I'll have my nightgown on in 90 degrees, right? And I do a morning meditation, and I really work on that. I spend more of my time working on that foundational pillar of resilience and getting aligned with my higher purpose. And because I found that everything else sort of just falls in place. So that's the number one thing that I do. And there's little practices within that I do. Um, I I mean, I guess that's specifically, I mean, I work on all five, so I hate to say three, but I actually work on all five, like I work out. I make sure that I'm moving my body. I hate drink. I wish I could be that person that loves to drink water. I don't. I would rather drink Dr. Pepper every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And people are like, once you've not had it for a while, you won't want it. That's not true for me. I have not had it for months and I still want it. Um, so I really focus on water, those sorts of things that I'm doing to stay resilient. Um, and human connection. I just can't tell you how important that is. Like having you, you do to a certain extent become like the people you surround yourself with. And if you want to be better in life, more successful in whatever realm, whatever your definition it is of it, then you've got to be around people that also that exude that.
Yeah.
And so I make it a point every week that I spend time like deep dive with at least one really healthy person.
I
Um,
love it. I love it. And it's so true. And I'm writing that book right now, which is the 5 people you need in your life. And there's certain roles that people fill. Yeah, we'll talk about that post recording because there's a lot of actually linear similar things that you're working on and that I'm looking into and all that stuff. So uh, it's the most important piece. Relationships are everything. You know, when you look back at, when COVID happened, I mean, drug use and suicide skyrocketed because people lost whatever connection they had. And you start with some people who, I'm fortunate enough that I have great connection because of this podcast. And I'm so used to having connection this way with people, even if they're not down the road from me. But how can people find those individuals and all that stuff? And 2020 was the true study of when that gets stripped away, what happens, right? And it's just awful how what happened to this world. I mean, it was worldwide. We often talk about America, but it was worldwide when the world shut down.
that's exactly right.
Just everything fell apart. So relationships are key to everything, and I love that that's one of the pillars that you talk about because it's just I can't talk about enough how important it is to have the right people in your space. And like you said, it has to be the healthy people. It has to be the people that are
Yes.
operating at that level.
And that's why it's the end cap. Like there's an order on purpose, and it's not because there's a hierarchy. It's because that human connection piece is you're going to attract the type of people if you've got the higher purpose pillar worked on, if your head, heart, and hands you are working on that, you're then going to, without even having to do a whole lot of work, you're going to attract the people to you that are healthy and
Yeah,
that are on that same type of journey.
I
And
love
so
it.
it's just so symbiotic how they all work together. And then those people you spend more time with affects how much more easily you regulate yourself, your heart, your hands, your head, which then changes how you're able to give more time into that higher purpose pillar. So anyway,
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question. But before we get there, how can people find you, work with you? What's all the good stuff?
yeah. So holisticresilience.com. That's easy. On socials, I think I'm just at kellygreene.me because my email is kellygreene.me. So that's super easy. Kelly at kellygreene.me if you want to email me. But there, connect with me. If you want to connect with me on the farm side, I'm also on the socials at Annabelle Farms
Blowing up on
TN.
TikTok.
I know it's crazy. And that's ANNABEL Farms TN dot. I mean not .com, but it's just Annabelle Farms TN. And yeah, so find me there. I'd love to talk to you. I'll talk to anyone. Again, I mostly work with corporations that bring me in. But if someone really needs some resilient specific coaching, I can do that from time to time on a just as needed case by case sort of basis.
I love it. So what's the website again?
Holisticresilience.com.
There we
And
go.
there's a book
So
coming out very soon.
I can't wait. Like this, I mean, the work that you're doing resonates with me wholeheartedly because obviously when I look at, my mastermind or some of the high performers that I've worked with, it is all about this. Like
Yeah.
it's not about what's the next thing I have to do in my business. That so the entrepreneurs listening, it's not about the next thing you have to do, the next thing you have to build. Like life is happening right now. And I saw this reel and I've mentioned it a number of times on this podcast, but I saw this reel the one time and it was like a monk or whatever, he was dressed like a
Mhm.
monk at least. And he talks about how like your life is one day. You're
Yeah.
born on a day, you die on a day, and what's happening right now is your life. Just today is your life. And we focus so, and yes, you need a purpose, you need the goal, like you have to have something to strive for. That's super important. But like all you have is right now. That's the only thing that's guaranteed. And I think a lot of people, high performers specifically, they miss that. They miss that mark every single time. So anyway, with all that being said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is: in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Mm. The moment that I recognized I was the common denominator in every bad thing that had happened to me in my adulthood.
I love it.
That was it.
Kelly, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my audience. Thank you so much for your friendship and thank you for doing the work that's necessary. You're going to change so many lives with this, and I absolutely love it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share.